this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence, the king of podcasts radio network, proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Starting year number 12 of the Wrestling is Real podcast, episode 819. This is King of Podcasts here with you. A proper introduction as we start the first episode of 2024. And the last episode I did was the post show for AEW World's End, which you can catch right now, kingofpodcasts.com. If you haven't had a chance to go and catch that yet, it took about 20 minutes to go and talk about the pay-per-view and what came of it, which MJF, no longer World Heavyweight Champion in AEW, Samoa Joe takes that belt now, and we get the debut of the Undisputed Kingdom tonight on Dynamite. Among other things, the celebration for Eddie Kingston becoming the Continental Crown Champion, and setting up a lot of other things, getting things all set up and going for the upcoming Revolution show on March 3rd, and that's where they're going to go with that. But now we're going to focus more on WrestleMania 40, because the first match, the tease of that first main event match, has been shot. Here we go. So everybody has talked about it through social media. Okay, Samantha Irvin getting shocked when she sees The Rock come out. Jinder Mahal being first the named former WWE champion that comes out to talk to the crowd, and then they give us a swerve to bring out The Rock, and The Rock comes out and does his thing. But the question is now, why The Rock is doing it now? Because we didn't hear much about if we were going to have him come in and work WrestleMania this year or not. We didn't know. But the timing is interesting. Now, The Rock just had an announcement with his ex-wife, Dany Garcia, the formation of the combined merger of the United States Football League and the XFL to become the United Football League, an 8-team league. Season begins March 30th, and they're combining XFL and USFL teams. I don't know what the rules are going to be like after that, but they're going to set it up, and he's behind it. Now, while he's working obviously as a businessman as he is, The Rock, all of his business is fueled by what he's able to do in terms of what he's been doing in Hollywood. Because most of his work has been going on in Hollywood when things have been going well. But we know that if we haven't talked about it much on the program, I need to bring the point up here. That The Rock, I said it a while back, there was always going to be a point where The Rock was going to need WWE again. He was going to need the WWE again because what he's done in his career has him in the best direction. He is a box office draw in some cases. But when we look at what he's done in his career in Hollywood, it's been some big box office movies, but they've not performed well. And really, last year, 2023, which you're going into the end of 2022 with Black Adam, the fallout from Black Adam, because The Rock had to try to boast that the movie broke bank and it was going to make more than its box office numbers were, and it didn't. And then among other things, he had other things that happened that did not help out matters. Okay, the Oahu, Hawaii relief fund for the fires that went on over there in Hawaii. Him and Oprah getting caught in the flack of that. And then some of the movies he was involved with not doing well either. We're going to go into all that right now and see what he's done in terms of some of the issues he's had. Because he hasn't had a good run at it. And even deciding to go and roast himself while he comes into return and starts making some points, right? And when he comes back, he talks about this is just, we're getting started. We're just getting started. So he's not going to be here. Maybe we're not going to get the same. We're going to probably get another program like Rock versus John Cena, like the level of that, which is going to be great. But think about it like this. I mean, okay, so you got set the second night of WrestleMania. Given everything that's going to be happening, we're now going to finally get the payoff. Okay, here we go. If anybody's going to take a chance and the one match that Roman Reigns needed to have, being the Universal Undisputed Heavyweight Champion, it has to be The Rock. Cody's already had his chance, and people are going to already start bitching and moaning because Cody's not getting his chance now. And there are memes out there saying, oh, well, this is what's happening when Cody goes out here, right? And it's like, yeah, he's getting flam-flammed. No, he's not. For me, yes, Cody should be the one. Now, we don't know what they're going to do with Roman anyway. They could very well, feasibly have Roman come out, take on The Rock, and The Rock could win and become champion again. Transitional. Because it would be somebody else that would take the belt off of him. You could do that. Because you got to ask yourself, who's going to be the one that's going to be the most viable in this long run? And I talked about this a couple weeks. Actually, I talked about this last week. When you're looking into this year, the list of championship contenders are very few. The Rock is absolutely a championship contender right off the bat. A legend. Future Hall of Famer. So we're going to get to that soon enough. The Rock is not getting older. I mean, it was what? 2011 when he had his match with John Cena? The back-to-back years? You have to understand, The Rock, he can go out there and still look good and, can still talk and all, but he's 51 years old. How much longer do you think he can keep going in his current set to go out and wrestle? So if he's going to get himself ready to go and wrestle again, okay, you're not going to have more chances to do this. And if he wants to have that one more match to wrap up his career, him against Roman would be the catalyst. That would be the ender. So you could have that happen. I don't think they need to do anything else after that. So The Rock coming back in now, always working in shape anyway, but now he comes in here, 51 years old, and there's just something about what he's doing that tells me there's a bit of concern out of The Rock's camp, his Hollywood camp. For Christmas, deciding to go ahead and dress up like his former Nation of Domination self in the 90s. Halloween was actually, not Christmas Day, but he decides to go and dress up like his old self for Christmas. I didn't get that part. And otherwise than that, it's like he does really concern himself about his career and what he feels. We always knew that this match could be set up and be put into play. And they got it set. Like, listen, it's going to be easy to build for this match. I mean, you're going to have two good promo cutters with Rock, with Roman, and if you're going to add Paul into the mix, yeah, it's going to be all set. That should be easy. So we'll have some good promo segments for Raw and SmackDown. If it's going to be SmackDown, great. And just set it up. But what do you do next? Again, 51 years old, and physically, yeah, he looks still massive and all, but let me tell you, you can't expect The Rock after all these years to continue to go and come on back and all right, let's do it one more time. And let's see if he can go and have the same match as he before, because I don't think he can. Remember, it was a while ago when he had that one match. So if he decided to go back to that again, it's one of those things where, it's going to be tough to go back to that match. To go back once again to where they were. Remember, it was WrestleMania 29, right? And so 28, 29, and now we're back to 40, 11 years later. Because The Rock really hasn't done much in the ring anyway, except for a couple little things, the rock bottom here and there. But to get him to go and do a full match with Roman, there's going to be a lot of theatrics going on in there, a lot of posing, and a lot of, things like that can be added into the match. But you're going to have to expect a 30 to at least a 60 or at least a 45-minute match at WrestleMania. That's what they have to plan out. That's what they have to program. Sure, we can have plunder, right? But what else do we have here? So for The Rock to come back now, he has to do it now if he's going to do it. If you're going to pull the trigger on him, the timing is good because Roman needs to have somebody that can feasibly go and take him down. after all these years holding the belt. Like, you need that size, that impactful, that epic a character to come back and take on Roman. And we've heard about this for a while. See, ask Rock last year, wouldn't have expected him, right? After the whole roll off of Black Adam? No. We've gotten him 2 years ago, right? Like, remember, after pandemic, if we're talking about, okay, Roman's been champion, would they have got him in 2021? No. 2022? No. Because he was working. And his career was doing fine. He didn't need WWE. Now, he needs WWE. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and put the case across. So, The Rock always had WWE in his back pocket. Whenever he needed him, whenever his career is kind of a bit faltering, it shouldn't be at this point. I mean, he's not that old of a movie star that he should be having some issues right now. But the problem is that he has not been the box office draw he could have been. You know, he doesn't have a franchise for himself. And if you want to compare him to his predecessors, the legends that are out there that have been working for a long time as box office stars, Arnold Schwarzenegger is a great example. I mean, he's been able to go and do things where he has, you know, the franchise of the Terminator, that's his. When he's had, you know, a lot of other movies that he's done and the career he's had has done very well. And one of the things I kept reading about and hearing about from people from commentary was, you know, what directors want to work with The Rock and feel good about working with him. Because there's always some issues where he has a little bit of his bravado, his ego, takes a little more of what it needs to be, okay? Part of the reason where he wasn't necessarily in the first part with Vin Diesel and the Fast X movie, right, that just came out, that is, you know, these 2-part finale of the movie, right? So he comes back April 2025 in that movie to reprise his role from the Fast franchise. But he's not the only reason that the franchise has been where it is. There's so much more than that. They did Hobbs and Shaw. Hobbs and Shaw could have been much more of a story, much more of a storyline they could have done. But you know, it doesn't look like we're going to be warranting another Hobbs and Shaw. People are not all over the place looking for another Hobbs and Shaw, looking for another extension to the Fast and Furious multiverse. We're not seeing that yet either. So The Rock needs the company right now as a boost. And I think about it like this. So Elton John, he used to go and do appearances on Top of the Pops, the BBC hit television show where all the music was going on. Like, all these big music artists would come on TV. It would be like what American Bandstand was here in America. And I remember there was a plugger, or one of these artist and repertoire people that help promote artists. I forget, I think his name was Eric Hall. But I remember he makes the point about that when Elton John, you know, he was doing so good, for about a good 7 years, putting out records, and, you know, they were selling millions of copies, and he's putting out hits that were in the top 10. But when those songs were not hitting so high as they were, and he had an album or two that kind of faltered a bit, right? Well, the one thing is that Top of the Pops was looking for celebrity hosts on their program. And this was, 1980? And there was a point where this A&R person would get into Elton John's head and say, hey, listen, you know what? You need to go and do this show. Like, you're obviously a bigger celebrity than that show should warrant, but you need to do this show because you're going to need them somewhere down the line when your career is not doing so well. And it was. The fact that he did go on that show and he got the praise and the adulation of the BBC and for the people that run that show, that, you know, when Elton John got his resurgence, 1983, I'm Still Standing, right? And he comes back. And then his career resurges once again for another, 9 years, 13 years, whatever it was, until he gets to Tim Rice and he starts doing all those Disney movie soundtracks, right? All that. All the way to the Can on the Wind. But his career had some dives. He had a little bit of a pushback, a little bit of a drop. For an extended career like that, you have to think about the fact that, okay, he needed this, right? With The Rock, you're talking about a 20+ plus year career. I remember the first movie I started watching when was Walking Tall. You got to remember, he goes back to Scorpion King, right? You go back to Scorpion King, and how long ago was that movie? Because like that's another 2002 film. So he goes back all that far, right? And then when you get here, you're like, okay, he's had a long career outside of WWE, right? And he's not hitting home runs when it comes to movies. You know, just because he gets put in a movie in a role should automatically get the money. No, it's not necessarily happening that way. But that's the problem he's had. So his career's faltering right now, 20 years in. Now, of course, he's been doing his entrepreneurial stuff. He's got, he's got his production company with Danny Garcia, his ex-wife. He was doing a lot of their projects, remember? Like he had Young Rock. He had the Titan Games. He had Ballers. Like there was all these other projects he was working on that he was a part of. Well, those projects aren't happening so much. And right now he's investing in the United Football League and he's putting himself as a face in front of it. But other than that, what else is he working on right now that's coming up for him that he's going to be, people are going to be paying attention to? That's the other thing you have to ask yourself. Like, what is it he's working on right now that's going to say, okay, you know what? He's got some work right now and he's going to have things that will be coming up pretty soon. Well, let's look at what we have. If we want to look at what he has coming up in terms of upcoming movies, well, let's look at what he has. At the moment, there's a movie in post-production right now for 2024 called Red One, and then nothing until 2025 with Fast X Part 2 and another Moana movie. Right? And I believe that's the live-action Moana. And then there's another Red Notice movie coming up, another Jungle Cruise coming up, another Fast and Furious movie, which I guess is another Hobbs and Shaw thing, or just Hobbs. We don't know what it's going to be. There looks like he's going to be they're going to rework Big Trouble in Little China. So they're going to remake that movie. San Andreas 2 is also in development. And The King in development. So he's got things he's working on. But for this year, no. It sounds like that this is the ramp up for him to rejuvenate his career. For the second leg of his career, or the next leg of his career to continue going forward. Because look, it's not as if The Rock is becoming a director or being a producer, working behind the scenes and doing all this stuff. Like he's, obviously behind in the production company end. I don't know what he's actually necessarily doing on that end, but what's happening right now is that he's a little light on this production. Like he's got projects to work on, but not as much as you would think. And you think about what he's been doing, he hasn't necessarily had any significant setup where he's doing really well. Like, listen, they did a remake. They did a sequel of Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, right? Oh, no, the next one, the second one, which didn't do as well, right? That was an issue. So he comes back, and then this movie does not do well. Jumanji underperforms, and Black Adam underperforms. And that's the problem that Dwayne is dealing with right now, The Rock. His Hollywood career has forced him to now play that trump card. Play the card that he needs to come back and have that match with Roman Reigns. This is the part nobody wants to talk about. Okay? Because if The Rock was getting his career moving along, we would never have this match. I don't think we would ever get this match happening. Don't tell me it's because, that Vince is gone, that, Triple H is going to get him back. No. It would have still needed Vince persuading The Rock to come back. Because remember, Vince had that kind of pull to get certain stars to come back and work, even though they were top of their game. Why Cena keeps coming back. Why Batista came back, right? But we're at this point now, and it's like, okay, what's going to happen next? But we have to see. Like, for The Rock, he's gone in a couple of different directions anyway. Now, he is producing some other things as well. So 2024, he's also doing Breaking Olympia, the Phil Heath story. But he's also going to be producers on all the projects he's working on as well, in terms of movies he's going to be appearing in. So he's got that also working for him. Like I said, there's a couple of projects for him in 2024, but not a whole lot. And there's other projects that will be coming up, but for him, he needs to go and do something to go ahead and restart his career, get it reignited. So coming out to do this is a good move for him, because when he does come back and he works with Roman and he starts doing those promos again, it's going to be like 2002 all over again, because we'll get him out there and let's see what he does. You see, the other thing too is that you got to ask yourself, how much material are Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns going to have to go after The Rock? Because The Rock is actually pretty vulnerable in a lot of different areas. Like, listen, if he was going, talk about Baywatch and criticize himself on that, listen, there's a lot more to go with that, man. There's a lot more to go. So the promos will be interesting. Let's see how far they go to go ahead and roast him and go after him and really just put him in a place to really just get him all worked up. And so what he did is that, with Jinder Mahal being out there, he says, nobody likes you. You're not funny. As a matter of fact, if you're one of The Rock's movies, you would probably be Baywatch. He didn't mind, putting it out there to go ahead and get himself all, to go after him. Because remember, that movie did not do well. $58.1 million in the North American box office. And you had a lot of people that were in that movie and that thought they were going to do really well. Nope. One of the worst movies that I ever performed. And that was before Doom. And that was after Doom, right? Just think about that. In May of last year, The Rock was getting really thrown under the bus. The Black Adam flack that he was complaining about how well that movie did, and that that because he was behind the movie, that was going to do really well. But you know what? Black Adam, as we already know, basically was the start of the end of the DCEU. So the DC movie universe we've been going on right now, it started faltering right then and there with Black Adam. The crumbling started happening. And then we see James Gunn come back and DC Comics, and the DCEU has to be reworked again. But Black Adam was the first one that went flat. The reason that Henry Cavill is no longer playing Superman, and I guess somebody else playing the role. Think about it like this. Now, for me, I will say that Black Adam as a movie was fine. I didn't mind it too much. I thought I enjoyed it. It wasn't necessarily, they didn't do anything overly special about it, but it didn't do great. IMDb gave it a 6.2 out of 10 of the voters, over 250,000 people that put it in there. In terms of Black Adam, it got an 88% audience score, but critics panned it 38%. And as for, if I had to go look at what the numbers look like in terms of what the box office was on that movie, I don't think it did well. But at the end of the run in the theater, Black Adam would again end up putting this. All right. The budget on it was a $200 million budget. A lot of money for it. In the theater alone, worldwide, $390 million. So it barely, you needed to make more than double to make a profit on it. So it didn't do that. And domestic DVD and Blu-ray sales, it got up to 15 million. That's it. That is it. It didn't pan out. It did not make the kind of money it was supposed to make. So they struggled with it and didn't do well. Even though Dwayne wanted to go and say it was different, but it was a different story and it wasn't the same. So back into it. Screen Rant writes about the rise and fall of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's box office Viagra. But his image as a massive box office draw is exaggerated. So people were just starting to go ahead and pan him at this point. Because he had box office flops, not only Black Adam, but Jungle Cruise. And also, The Rock also lended his voice to the DC League of Super Pets movie, an animated movie, which also failed attempt to make The Rock part of the bigger brand of DC, right? And then he had his public feud with Vin Diesel and left the Fast and Furious franchise. And, some movies he's done better or not so good. But the question was at the time has The Rock lost his power as a box office draw? So you start off in The Mummy, box office hit. The kids and family movies he came in for 2010, they were hits. And then he changed himself in Fast Five. And the action roles started coming in hot and heavy for him. Big change. But his biggest hits have all been Fast or Furious or other ensemble movies. They said that, Fit and the Furious for 2017, $1.2 billion. Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, $961 million. Jumanji Next Level was $798 million. So it did a little bit better. It didn't do as bad, but it dropped off a bit. Fast and Furious 6, $789 million. Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw, $716 million. Moana, $630 million. Fast 5, $630 million. His solo movies have not been big enough box office hits. And we were talking about, okay, Skyscraper made $304 million. Hercules, $243 million. San Andreas, $456 million. But these were all big budget movies, right? Said in the story that, his biggest problem with the starring roles is that none of them were super hits or big enough to create a demand for a franchise. And this high-profile box office flops like Baywatch and Jungle Cruise prove his name alone isn't enough to draw a crowd. They mentioned about the Fast and Furious franchise and Hobbs and Shaw. You would think, well, The Rock's in it. It should really do well. Well, it didn't hit that high. You have to remember the movie was a Fast and Furious spinoff. And so it was the fact it was a Fast and Furious movie that got a draw, but it wasn't The Rock. It wasn't him so much. And the magic that he has, supposedly, doesn't meet the hype. His filmography and box office are more than enough sufficient to make him one of the biggest stars of the world, but they don't support the unstoppable brand image of the Dwayne Johnson established in interviews and on social media. And they compared the fact of how Vin Diesel and his career has gone on. But this was all leading up to the Fast X movie. And they made the point that with Vin Diesel, he didn't have built a big movie star image. He was known for iconic roles. He did Riddick and Xander Cage and Triple X and I forget the movie it was. But the thing was that Diesel always did movies like Fast and Furious, Guardians of the Galaxy, being Groot, and his solo movies are all modest, low-budget hits. And the fact that he came back to Fast and Furious is The Rock, according to Hollywood, according to analysts, saying that he's admitting defeat. He had to come back to this movie. So, in the story from Screen Rant, they're saying that, Johnson's addition was the reason for the box office growth. Really, it was one of the reasons that the Fast and Furious franchise was able to continue past the 5th movie and get to 10. Let's make that clear. We should say that. Because when he lost Paul Walker, well, that's where The Rock kind of came in and the different direction was made to the movies, and it all changed. So Fast 5 helped to make him become the star he is now. But his solo box office work has proved his dependence on the franchise. And they're not wrong about all that. They're not wrong about that. That helped a lot for Fast X because you know what? With other movies, it's not working so much as well. And other stories came out the same way about him as well. In 2022, he was the 5th highest paid actor in Hollywood. For Black Adam, he got $22.5 million for the role. Plus, he also earned a percentage of the film's net profits. But the problem is he didn't make much money on the profits, on the residuals. So some of the things he also had in here that did not help, okay, that has not been talked about either, was that The Rock was given some harsh blows. He was named in a ridiculous $3 billion lawsuit, which was filed by Raka Khan, saying that Johnson and several others conspired to have her and her children kidnapped. But nobody really talked about that. The website Fandom Wire says that Johnson's on his last stand. that he's often appeared in franchises and been working on franchise starters for the past few years. But he's failed to perform well in film sequels. The 51-year-old appears to be taking his last chance with his upcoming franchise starter, which is Red One, a Christmas-themed action-adventure film written as the first in a series of films. And it's supposed to give away a lot more holiday film franchise. Now, Dwayne Johnson, Chris Evans are the lead roles, Kieran Shipka, Lucy Liu, Mary Elizabeth Ellis, J.K. Simmons, Nick Kroll, Christopher Hivju in supporting roles, and Johnson's also going to be a producer in the movie. But if it doesn't take off, then the film industry, it says it might be curtains for The Rock in Hollywood. So Red One has to pan out and do well. And there are podcasts that are talking about him as well, not in a great place. Because not only did he have Black Adam that did bad, and Jungle Cruise, and Red Notice on Netflix, which also underperformed. He's trying to right the ship with Red One. Let's see what happens with it. And then, as we mentioned, last year, The Rock's TV series on NBC was canceled after 3 seasons. Young Rock, done. Not long enough for syndication. They might run it on one of those fast channels like on Freevee or Tubi or whatever it is, and they might have that to work off, or Peacock. But other than that, no, nothing else. So it'll probably be on Peacock for some perpetuity, and that's it. So this right here, that's the Hollywood press he's been getting. Then MovieWeb, also the same way, is major career slump explained. And everybody's basically bringing up the whole thing, right? Now, this story from MovieWeb, they talk about that for a perilous age for any Hollywood star, 51 years old. Johnson's now fighting the same battle for commercial relevancy that Clint Eastwood had in the late 1980s, Stallone in the 90s, Schwarzenegger in the 2000s. He could repel the challenge of Hollywood's newest line of action stars. The younger Johnson represented himself 20 years ago. But you're right, because he's going to get knocked off the totem pole at the very top. Will he still be the guy that people are going to go to for when it comes to action movies? If he doesn't pan out with this movie well, the Red One movie doesn't do well, that franchise doesn't do well, then he suffers. But what will help him out in the meantime is getting him back into wrestling, getting him back into the WWE fold to get him hot again. Because he needs the company right now in order to go and build himself back. So for those that are thinking, oh, this is such a wonderful thing, yeah, it's God sent. Because this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't The Rock struggling in his career. Now, he's sure to find enough with money. Okay, he's sure to find enough with everything else he's doing. He's a millionaire over and over. But he is investing in other projects, and he's doing things also as well. You know, he's putting money back into his production company. And what has to happen with him now is he has to find a way to use this WWE run to really build him back up. Because the company he's expecting is going to be able to go and help him become a bigger star. Make him viral again. And get a new audience to really pay attention to him. Because that's the other thing too. It's probably a thought process that with The Rock, and by the way, this would also help with Roman Reigns in terms of his Hollywood career. Because these two, it is going to be a testing ground for that. The Rock and Roman together, Roman will be looked at for Hollywood by what he does here with The Rock. People are going to be paying attention to it. Hollywood's going to be paying close attention. So we get a spotlight on this. How well does The Rock do back in the live crowds? How does he do in terms of getting the ratings back up? And doing what he does. Like being good at what he's already done. Because if he can kind of show signs of what he was like, you know, in his 30s and his 40s, right? All the major moments he's had in WWE to build himself back up again. And show he is at such a level in terms of the sports entertainment community and just sports in general. Because now you're also to remember, you got Endeavor and TKO Group Holdings now. They're going to be dealing with The Rock under his fold right now in this space. Ari Emanuel and Mark Shapiro and all these guys. Like, what are they going to be doing with him to build up his status, his capital, as he gets himself back out there and rejuvenates his Hollywood image? Because he's 50 years old. He needs to do something right now to go and give himself some more time in Hollywood to get more projects, so he never loses his spot. Because if he does it right, he could do what Schwarzenegger and Stallone did and continue to further their careers well into the late years. Stallone's still doing work. Remember, with Stallone, I mean, his deal was, okay, he went along and did the thing with the Expendables. And that worked out greatly for him. Right? Expendables was a pretty good franchise for Stallone. You don't need to do them anymore. The fourth one was not good. But the first three, great. And he moves along still. And really, there's not that many action stars as we speak anyway. So he needs to go and work something more off of this. But Black Adam was a big mark on his career. He wanted Black Adam to be a film series, but the failure caused it not to happen. We're not probably going to go back to that again. His last true box office hit was Jumanji's The Next Level, 2019. And some other people talk about, has he been overexposed? Because he's been very visible, right? He's got a lot of social media followers, 380 million followers total. He's got a $7 Productions. Johnson's produced and starred in Ballers and Young Rock. He was a part of the Young Rock series. And his focus on TV detracted from his film career and making Johnson too accessible. And the public has probably grown tired of Johnson's seemingly inescapable media presence. They also talk about the fact that he's also been one-dimensional in terms of an actor. Instead of taking more creative risks as an actor, he's cocooned himself within the increasingly predictable static confines of his blockbuster film space, which is now being threatened. So we look at the action stars that we have right now. Chris Hemsworth, Tom Holland, Jason Momoa, Chris Pratt. You know, will he step aside to speak for these actors as well as Schwarzenegger did for Johnson, or will Johnson fight to maintain and reclaim his now fading standing as Hollywood's, if not the world's, top action film hero? And that's the problem. It's not a good place for him and where he's at. And the other thing, too, is he's really not working with any really incredible directors. And some of the movies he's done has also been based on other things that really have helped the movies come out. He got $20 million to work the movie Rampage, which was in 2018. And the director he worked with on this was a Canadian film director and producer, Brad Payton. They'd worked together on Journey to the Mysterious Island and San Andreas. But these are just big box office movies. They're just big popcorn movies. And Rampage did make $430 million, by the way. Say, part of the ensemble's good, but other things can also happen as well. Another thing happened here from Fortune Magazine, they talk about the fact of how what The Rock did to really hurt DC Studios. He got him to bend to his will, got himself and Henry Cavill fired while taking the next superhero movie at the box office. And he made mistakes, you know. These are the things you have to worry about and just to consider, okay, what's going to happen to him next? And then he had the Oprah's Maui Fund, and he got behind that. You know, and you would think that maybe it was well-intentioned, but something happened and it did not work well. But it caused him to do the one thing you don't want to be doing in Hollywood, public apology. So he was, along with Oprah, asking for the public to donate to their Maui Fund when Johnson and Winfrey both have oodles and oodles of money they could donate to Maui to help out in the restoration efforts and the recovery efforts. And he did a video on his Instagram, and he said, quote, "When we first launched the fund, there was some backlash. I get it, and I completely understand, and I could have been better, and next time I will be better." He also mentions about people and the money that they have. He says, quote, "I understand money ain't falling out of the sky. It isn't growing on trees. And there's a lot of people who there who's living the paycheck to paycheck, and I get it and know what that's like. I live paycheck to paycheck. $7, I know. So the People's Fund of Maui started in August, days after wildfires tore through West Maui, including Lahaina. And again, there were a lot of people that died from the blaze. 100 people died from the blaze, and lots of homes destroyed. Now, I never checked to see if anything happened with that Maui fund and how much they raised. I never really checked. And what they said so far as of August 31st, $67 million was raised. So, okay, there you go. That was done. And now he's back. And people come on here and they just feel like, oh, it's nothing. Like, oh, here we go. And Justice Daskiewski from New York Post reports about how that another typical Rock appearance, he calls it, filled with chants, insults, and songs on the people's elbow to Jinder Mahal, took a very serious turn in the final minute. Because he says, when The Rock gets something to eat tonight in San Diego, should The Rock sit in a booth? Or should The Rock sit at the bar? Yeah, The Rock loves the bar. Or should The Rock sit at the head of the table? It's a nice way to drop it in. Currently, the Universal Undisputed WWE Champion is right now over 1,219 days as champion. So we can see where the move to go and have him here and be next up to go after Roman Reigns, yeah, it makes all the sense. Now, one of the things that people were asking about is when do you think the match is going to be? Shouldn't it be a WrestleMania match? Because some people are trying to say that maybe they'll have the first match at the Elimination Chamber in Perth, Australia, in front of 70,000 people in Australia. But if you do that, then that means Cody Rhodes can still win the Elimination Chamber match and confront Reigns close to the show and finish his story on night 2 of WrestleMania 40. So some people are trying to think that, oh, Cody's still going to get his chance. He's still going to get his shot at WrestleMania. I don't think so. If you're getting The Rock right now to come in and work, you're going to get him for the WrestleMania card. Shouldn't be any other card he should be on, personally. But what do you do with Cody? I make the point that Cody's been hot even after his loss to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. They've kept him pretty strong. And I'm not sure what the crowd's going to want. Are they going to be happy with the fact that if it's Rock and Reigns now and Cody's left behind? You can see that might be a reason for some people to feel that. As a result, Raw did get 1.75 million viewers on Monday, and it was the best viewed episode since CM Punk returned. So that's good. And the fact of the matter is now that Monday Night Football is going to start taking by the wayside because of the fact that they'll no longer have to worry about the ratings of Monday Night Football coming into play. Now, right now, this week they did have to go up against the second of the college football playoff games, which was kind of done pretty early on. And then next week, the national title game, which they're not going to win over. There's going to be a big crowd going to watch that game. Thomas writes for Cage Side Seats and actually puts a story out and says that while The Rock's return is good for Cody Rhodes. And let's go into what the comment is about. Recent edition of the Rumor Roundup from Cage Side Seats reported about the Western Australia Tourism Board, which paid WWE to bring the Elimination Chamber to Perth, and that The Rock could appear at that February 24th show, and Wrestling Observer specified it was only a request, not an official indication that The Rock would be there. Right now, 45,000 tickets have been sold for the Australia event at Perth's Optus Stadium, and the capacity is 60,000 seats. So they're still working on a little bit more of that. So if Roman Reigns beats The Rock and they supposedly do that match at Elimination Chamber, that Cody's story will potentially be much more compelling. And what have they done with Cody Rhodes since? Well, they put him in the matches with Brock Lesnar, and Cody would end up winning, sucked into a feud with Judgment Day, and now finds himself in a knee-deep war with Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, he did have some injuries when it came to his path. Besides the torn pectoral muscle that he suffered, and he took on Seth Rollins as a result, he's still been able to work pretty much injury-free. He's been pretty healthy. Now, some people are saying that this is the wrong call for Roman and Rock to happen. Eric Beeston writes this story for Bleacher Report, and he says that it is a dream match that would bring together the two most successful members of the Samoa Wrestling Dynasty, the biggest WrestleMania main event in modern history, and the most potentially financially significant. Now, they try to go ahead and go back to the Royal Rumble win that Reigns had in Philadelphia, the one that everybody booed because they were expecting Daniel Bryan to win. And that right now Roman Reigns is not needing The Rock's help anymore with the credibility that he needs. Then he brings up Cody. That we know that Cody wants to finish the story. His driving force. Happening as well is that we're going to see what's going to go on with Raw and SmackDown coming up and what they're going to be doing with it, because Michael Cole now is going to be officially working Raw exclusively. He'll not be working on SmackDown anymore with Kevin Patrick and Corey Graves. So that's all set. We were going to talk about here on the program. So MJF is nowhere to be seen. No longer on the roster anymore either. And they had a couple of good matches on tonight. Mariah May had her debut. And then she was interrupted by Deonna Purrazzo, who has now joined the company, the Virtuosa, now in AEW, which is quite a grab for her to go and join that company right now. And all the stars they have in there. So Deonna should be a good acquisition from there for them. Samoa Joe was quickly talked about at the beginning of the show, and then we saw the Undisputed Kingdom. Everything set up with that. And we're going to see some of the people that are going to be going after him, after the Devil and the men, what they did, which is the Acclaimed and Jay White and Bullet Club Gold. All that's going on. Among other things that they had. And Trent Beretta is now going to go after the Continental Crown Championship against Eddie Kingston on his first title defense on Collision. So they got all that set up. It's quite an interesting night. And that's all I'm going to say about all this. I'm going to finish up the show right there with that. So, as always, we're back with another year. And a lot of WrestleMania talk coming up in the future. But everybody, go ahead and enjoy the fact that The Rock is back and he's coming back in on board and work with the company. But remember, he is needing them more than WWE needs him right now. The Rock is just in a desperate place. So hopefully this is going to work out for him so he can get himself back up and going again. That's what he really needs more than anything right now, is for this run to really work while doing great. So he can really go ahead and get his career back up and going and move along. And he can still continue to be the action star that he is. Gets his match with Roman Reigns, and Roman is much better for it. And who knows what Cody gets after this. We'll figure it out soon enough. So anyway, that's this program for tonight. Thanks for listening in. Come back for another Wrestling Zero podcast, because wrestling needs us.